Welcome to the Candy Valentino Show, the podcast for founders,
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Candy Valentino Show. Thanks so much for tuning in and spending this time with me today. I'm so excited that you get to listen into this conversation that I am having with Jasmine Jonte, the founder of Creation, which is a done-for-you course creation company, but they actually do more than that, which we're going to unpack. Jasmine, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad we got to do this because we have not just the professional relationship, we've worked together in Founders, you've done work for me, so I just wanted to share with our audience a lot of what you do because I think it's so valuable for entrepreneurs to be able to understand that what you do exists. Because as somebody that came from the life that I had before, I didn't even know that someone could do a lot of the stuff that you do. But before we get into that, I want to unpack a little bit about how you got to this place in your business now, because you weren't like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to start a company. Tell everyone about what you did prior to starting your business.
So before business, I was a teacher. I taught in the lowest performing school in the country, which was in Detroit, Michigan, and at the time. And I taught kindergarten and first grade. So I taught the littles, taught the babes. And I didn't even know business was a thing. Like, your dad owned a business, right? So you always grew up knowing that it was an option. I come from blue, white-collar parents who just worked for other people. I didn't have a single relationship in my life of someone who owned a business.
Oh, yeah.
So when my best friend actually started to get involved in a business, she reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to start a business with me? And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I did not really understand what it meant, but she had me at, you can stay home with your dog and work from home. And I was like, sounds great.
That's so funny because it sounds like she's asking you to go to brunch. Like, hey, do you want to go start a business with me?
Yeah. I mean, it was like, first it was like, can you get some side money, do a side hustle, and then eventually grow it into being full time. And I think it was part like moving away from the pain of being in the classroom because it was a very toxic workplace that I was in. It was really hard what my kids were going through and just like the compassion fatigue that comes with that over years. But also moving toward the pleasure of I could actually like live my life by design. I could travel. I could like own a home. I could potentially earn financial freedom. Like that, all of those were completely new ideas outside of the whole, go to college, get a job, work forever for someone else, retire, and then live your life. Like that was the paradigm I had.
Yeah.
And
that's so fascinating because that's so different. Like, our own reality is all we know, right? For a certain period of time. So it's so interesting that like you didn't even think about that as an option until it was presented. As somebody maybe that's watching or listening right now, that they're in that place of they have a full-time job, maybe they have a side hustle, maybe they're not 100% sure what they want to do. What was the tipping point for you? I mean, obviously she said you can stay at home, but from when did it go from, oh my gosh, I'm going to go all in and quit my safe job and build this business?
I realized that if I didn't take that risk, I would never see the reward that I really wanted to see in life, which for me was retiring my parents. So often we hear, your why has to be bigger than you. You need a why that makes you cry, all that. But that why, that's exactly what got me into action and like scary big action. Not like, oh, I'm going to, build my little business and like make a couple $100 extra a month. Like it was like, no, I'm going to work 80 hours a week and figure this out, like come hell or high water. Like there was no other option. So yeah, a
so
why
you had
bigger
the
than
leverage. Me. Yeah, big why, big leverage. And then what do you feel when you were like, okay, I'm doing this? What were some of the first things that you think you had to overcome first in order to then do it? Because it's one thing to have the idea, I'm going to do this and my why's so big and I have leverage, but then it's a whole other animal to actually go do it. What were some of the things? Was it mindset? Was it being around people? What do you feel were some of the first things you had to get in order to go do it?
Both of those things, both mindset and being around other people. I did what Tony Robbins, calls immersion. And I just read every book I could get my hand on. I listened to every podcast I could about entrepreneurship and mindset and limiting beliefs because I didn't even know what that was. Like the first time I read Jen Sincero's book, you are a badass. And she talks about limiting beliefs. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting on the couch in Nashville reading this book and think to myself, why would anyone have a belief that limits themselves? Like, it was like, I just didn't get it, you know? So, so it was a lot of that, just like immersion into books, podcasts, and then when I could afford them, events.
Yeah.
And like getting actually in the room.
That's so good.
With people.
Yeah. It's so important in the beginning, right? Because I always say that you can have the best strategies, but if you don't fix the like 6 inches between your ears first, you're going to go try, fail. And then you're going to want to go back to your original job or whatever it is that you're doing. Did you have any of that in the beginning? Did you have any moments where you were like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I shouldn't have done this. I think I want to go back. Was there any of that?
I would often think, wouldn't it be easier if I just, you know, punched my card every morning? Like, wouldn't it be easier than not knowing what I'm doing the majority of the time? Because when you know nothing about entrepreneurship and then you become an entrepreneur, basically just making mistakes all day.
Yeah.
And I just remember always weighing that balance with, but that would mean I would have to give up making my own schedule, working from home, like all of the almost like creature comforts that I found in running my own business. So that even though it was hard, it was worth it to me. But yeah, there was definitely moments I was like, oh, wouldn't it be easier? And I'd give myself a 5-minute pity party and then move on.
But you didn't. You stuck in it.
Yep.
And what made you get into the company that you started? So obviously teaching background, I know what you do because you've done it for me and worked with me before, and we're going to unpack all of that. But what made you pick that? Did you know right away, or was it just like, oh, I'm going to figure out what this business is?
I did some other things first. After I did that whole personal development immersion, I realized there was this really underserved community of people who were into personal development, but didn't have support to stay accountable and support to be connected with like-minded people. And so my first thing was creating programs for those people. Okay. So I took my teaching expertise, I took the personal development I had learned, and I applied it by helping people. And what I quickly realized was my retention rates were nuts. Like, people just didn't leave. And my completion rates were amazing. And I thought, wow, like, okay, so I can apply my teaching skill to this other industry and it'll work. But I could not figure out marketing. Like, huge hole. Had no idea what I was doing. So I started buying courses about how to market your services and how to sell. And I quickly realized they were really bad. Like, these people were doing multiple 7 figures a year, and I would get into their program, open those, you know, digital doors to the course for the first time, and thought, they have no idea what they're doing. It's going to take me so long to get a result from this. So we've all taken a junky course, unfortunately. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? There are people who really don't have the skill that I have, and I would be able to impact even more people if I couple what I know how to do with this teaching, which is teaching, with what they know how to do, which is marketing and sales. So it took me a few years to get there, but once I landed, it was like that perfect fusion of what I'm good at, what I really know how to do, and what I love to do.
Yeah. And you saw a need. You saw something that you weren't recreating. I just want everyone to hear all of that you just shared, because it applies to so many people in business. You weren't trying to recreate and invent something. You were taking something that you were like, oh my gosh, these are not very good. I think I can do that better. And you really found the intersection of what you know, what you had experience in, what somebody is already willing to pay for, and then just operating from a place that you can do it better in, and then implementing that and doing it. And I think that's where people get stuck, is they'll see that need and then they don't go do it. But then you were like, okay, wait a minute. And then the other thing I think is so awesome that you said was that you knew you didn't have skills in this area, but you went ahead and developed them. And I think that's another place that entrepreneurs get stuck sometimes, is because they're like, well, I don't know this thing, but I'm going to just try to keep it my way. I don't want anyone to know that I don't know this thing. And then they stay stuck, as opposed to getting the support and the help that they need. And now you're working with all entrepreneurs, a lot of solo entrepreneurs, right? And entrepreneurs of all kinds that need your services. So let's fast forward a little bit in your journey. You found out, okay, these are really crappy courses. I can do better than this. What came next?
So I put a post on Facebook because I knew nothing about marketing, but I knew I had relationships there. And I went to Facebook and said, I'm an online course ghostwriter. Does anyone need to build a course? And sure enough, like first 5-figure client off of one Facebook post.
Wow.
Like it was wild. It was the
Find a
most
way.
money I'd ever made in a day. You know, I come from a $38,000 teaching salary. So it was awesome. And like the processes and the systems and my method and how I worked with clients, it just flew out of me. Like it was the easiest thing in the world.
Wow.
So that was then. And then now, you know, we do work with a lot of like professional service providers, right, who want to get leverage on their time. And then we work with more established course creators or companies who just need to up level their programs.
Yeah. And give me an example of professional services, because I know we have a lot of people that watch the show.
Well, we've got therapists, accountants, CFOs, lawyers, Judge Anthony,
That's
the
right,
lovely Judge
that's
Anthony.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, so all kinds of different service
Oh my
providers.
gosh, he should be a testament on his own to what you do, because his course, obviously, and again, this is the way everybody should start, in my opinion.
I agree.
You might, okay, good.
No,
I was going to say, oh gosh, you probably disagree.
Totally agree.
Is as far as like, because everyone thinks, and we are definitely going to get into this, that you create this beautiful course, you throw up a post online, and all of a sudden you're going to have a 7-figure launch, or insert any online product, right? Any educational product. And so what Anthony did was created his own. It wasn't the greatest, but he just refined it. And I think if he would have went and spent all of that money up front, he would have quit because he wouldn't have had the result that he had wanted. And I see that a lot in a lot of business owners. So I think for in my opinion, I always say you need to start with what you know, because you need to then revise it and make it better. And you need the feedback, the data from the people that bought it of what's good, what's not. If you invest everything into it, you actually don't know what you need to change and fix, right? It's almost like if you went and tried to build the $1 billion company before you built a $1 million company, you probably would take so long to get there that you might fizzle out. So for anyone that's wanting to create, and I know you said course, but I really think what you do is so much broader as far as like education and training programs for people's employees. And like, I think back in the day, how nice would it have been to have an online portal where all of my staff could go in and hear our values and our mission statements and how we run our customer service standards, so they didn't have to read them in a book. But you do that too. So what are some of the other, aside from courses, what are some of the big components that you have been helping entrepreneurs create, and how that system saves them time in their business?
Yeah, we do a ton of like high ticket group programs. So the person who has one-on-one and they want to leverage their time, but you need a curriculum and a training in order to do that effectively. So we do a ton of those. Live event trainings, like live event keynote presentations, or just full day events, multiple day event programming. We've done that. And then sometimes we'll do lead magnets, workbooks, accompaniments to actual books, right? So it's really any kind of learning experience, any kind of experience where you're transferring your knowledge to someone else, because teaching is a skill. So just like writing copy is a skill, sales is a skill, ops is a skill, like these are all skills, and so is teaching. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of saying, oh, I know what I know, so I can just teach it. And it's not the same thing. And even going from people who have done one-on-one services or taught one-on-one, when you teach one-on-one, it's like you have this whole, file of, or, you have this whole drawer of files in your brain. And you're like, okay, she needs this file. So you take it out and you give it to her and it solves her problem. But when you're teaching a group, it's like you need to know the 10 out of 100 files that everybody needs to know and what order to put them in, which is really hard for most entrepreneurs. So really the teaching skill is what we do.
And you're so good at it. And I'm not being paid to say any of this. I actually pay you. But because I've noticed it's one thing to do something. For me at least, it was so incredibly, my brain is just wired to do it. I actually have to stop my brain and be like, no, wait, how do I teach this? And it took me at least 2 years to even figure that out in a live format with one-to-one people, which was so valuable to me to have consulting clients along the way. Cause I'm like, consulting, you're just kind of fixing problems. You're not coaching them on how to solve their own problem, but you always want to leave people better than you found them. So it's like, how can I also transfer this knowledge? And what I love is, even in my next book, you're doing all the graphics, all the worksheets, not you, your company's doing all of the things that it's like, okay, how do I take this point that I know and transfer it to meet the person where they are, which is so much harder than just one-on-one telling someone and adjusting the information. So I love how you said the file cabinet. That's so brilliant. And so the other thing too is like, anyone needs to do that for all of their employees. So even if you never want to create an education product, you are still educating and training your employees. And I think that's the one sleep zone that most people on what you offer, they don't even think and connect that like, oh my gosh, I can take all of this stuff that I need to tell every single person I hire and I can condense it all into one place and I don't need to be the one to create it all. Like, I think it's massively valuable.
Especially for service provider companies, because you can take that content. Like, I'm thinking of a CFO that we worked with, and we took what she does, like, what's the tax strategy you love? Hiring your kids.
Oh yeah.
And there's a couple of them.
Augusta Roll.
Yeah. So we made little like mini courses related to each of those strategies so that someone could buy that program off the website and implement it themselves, or they could hire her and her team to do it. But she uses that exact same training to train her new hires, and they use the same resources, they use the same templates, they use the same spreadsheets. Like, it's literally cut and paste. So it's like this idea of multi-purpose content.
Yeah. And then it develops your own IP, which is, and again, we talk about this on the show, but is going to increase your valuation whenever you go to exit, because now you have all this proprietary that's baked in, which is one of the key P's on getting a high return on EBITDA. So it's like now you're developing proprietary assets. And you can be like, well, that thing really worked. Let's go trademark that. Let's go copyright a book that's on top of that. And you can see how like it's almost like opening Pandora's box to see where all of these things can go just by doing one thing. And that's what, I love. How do we do one thing, and then get it everywhere? Because it's maximizing your time, right? And we only have so much of that, and that it should have an ROI on it. And what I love about what you do is it's not just like, well, this course has this workbook and that's all it is. It's like now these workbooks can be repurposed for lead gen to try and gain emails for new clients to find out about you. So I love that. Is that something you strategically weaved in, or did you just find out like, oh my gosh, these can be repurposed all over the place and save clients money?
I think I discovered it somewhere along the way. And probably a client asked me like, can I just use like permission, right? Can I just use my own content that I've paid you to create? But can I just use this as a lead magnet? And what's great is like the more clients you work with inside of your program, the more they will give you feedback around, you should take this and make it a mini training and put it in the middle of your funnel. And that's where I get really excited, is the entire offer suite and how can we put upsells and cross sells inside of it so that when they're in program 1, they already know about programs 2, 3, and 4, and they can already see themselves inside of it, once they're done with program 1. So, there's all kinds of dynamic things you can do, but you have to think about it from that strategic place, which you're so great at with business, right? Is you have this amazing strategic brain, and I do that with courses. Like, how can we get the most out of doing this one thing one time?
Yeah. Exactly. And I think we really clicked on that, because that's exactly how I see business. Like, okay, how can we do this? Then how can this apply in a bunch of different ways so that you as the founder get to then work on the business and aren't constantly stuck in it? And let's speak to a moment for the people that are like, well, you know what? Okay, I think I want an education. I'm an attorney. I think this is really great. Like, I obviously have a lot of clients like that because they know that people need that information, upcoming attorneys, or we're just using them as an example. But let's say someone's like, okay, I think I want this education course. I see all these people talk about, you just create this thing and then you put up a Facebook post and then you make hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? What is the real world, if we can kind of like bust through the myth, how does it actually work once you have the product created?
Courses do not make you passive income.
Oh, did you hear that, guys? Okay.
Full stop.
I didn't pay her to say that.
Courses allow you to leverage your time. And with the extra time that you have, you can then work on marketing so that you have a business that's running without you needing to spend time to create income.
Say that one more time.
Okay. So, courses are not passive income, right? Courses allow you to stop trading time for money. That's really what they do. So once you have the course, you have your time freed up, but you have to spend that time becoming a digital marketer. Because in order to make courses work, and especially like self-paced evergreen courses, which is what everybody wants. They want a funnel where I can make money when I sleep or when I'm on the beach sipping mimosas, right? Like, you have to have digital marketing behind it. And for a lot of my clients, like they don't want to be a digital marketer.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to leverage their time, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that's your version of success, rock and roll, baby. But if you want to, have the multi-million-dollar company or, $100 million empire in an education space, you have to have some serious marketing chops or have enough cash to hire someone with serious marketing chops.
Yep.
So all of these marketers out there who are telling you, oh, just make a course, you'll make money in your sleep. Don't listen to them.
I think they're probably trying to sell you a course on how to create a course.
That's it.
They're doing that.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of truth. Like I even see, like, because it almost, if you think about it, if we just simplify it to business, I don't know why it's almost like the online space created something different with courses and online products, but they're really the same. Like if we want to sell, I normally have like this cup. If we want to sell this cup, we got to create the cup. We got to manufacture the cup. We got to distribute the cup. But now we need to market the cup to sell the cup. Courses, it's just the same thing. It's a product that we create, we manufacture, we design, AKA fulfill, like all of those components. Now we got to market it. And I feel like that there's a big void in the space that nobody talks about that marketing. So someone watching is like, oh my gosh, that's me. Thank goodness there's nothing wrong with me. I created a course and it's not selling, because I hear that all the time where people say, I just think there's something wrong with me. Nobody wants my stuff. And I'm like, well, what are you doing to market it? Well, I put a post up on Instagram. Like posting and hoping is not a strategy for customer acquisition. So somebody that's in that moment, how can you, because I know marketing isn't your business, but obviously it aligns with your product distribution. What are some of the things you found that you're like, you know what, these things work really well in order to get it out and have more sales?
One thing that's working right now is niche. So some people are calling this the year of the niche, right? Because more and more creators have come online since 2020, which means that you need to be able to stand out. And one of the easiest ways to stand out is niche. Now, the cool thing is you don't have to redo your product. You just change your marketing message. For instance, if I'm an Instagram consultant and I teach people how to do Instagram, I can keep my product the same. I can add some extra resources for this new niche that I'm working with. And then you just zero in on that niche. And people are already going to feel like, oh, wow, like she's talking to me. Because it's not just Instagram marketing course. It's Instagram marketing for local service-based businesses with 10 employees or less in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like now I want to buy it because it's exactly for me.
Yeah.
So one thing is just niche your marketing. You don't have to niche the course. Just niche the marketing. Some other things that I've found, like more, not necessarily a right now thing, but just in general, is understanding your options when it comes to marketing. So many people assume there's one way to do it when there's so many. I mean, there's YouTube paid, there's organic, Instagram, there's paid. I mean, there's just limitless ways to do it. And I find that thinking about where your audience is hanging out most, go there, and then create a plan, focus on that one thing, and shut out all the other shiny objects. It's very easy to think, okay, I see my competitor, they're doing Google ads, so now I should do Google ads. When you have this other half-baked, marketing campaign is over here. So just know your options, make a decision, and commit.
I love it. Yeah, it's so true. The shiny object syndrome is an entrepreneurial landmine for sure. So the people that see all of this online, I've done $50 million in online sales, right? Or whatever it is that they might see. And they're like, oh my gosh, I want that. What happened behind the scenes, whether it's a course or an education company, like even with, Tony and Dean and all of the names that have been around from the 90s that have mega online companies, what are some of the things that have happened behind the scenes in order for them to do that? And how difficult is it to pull off?
It's more difficult than everybody makes it sound like. I think if I think about my most successful clients who are doing 8 figures a year, eight on their way to 9. They've been in the annual revenue. Yeah. They've been in the game for decades. Like they've been in the game for a long time and they are committed to client experience and they will do whatever it takes to get their clients results. Because I think, one of the things about the online space is people just think, oh, I can just put up a course and, you know, if it works for 2 years, great. And then I'll just pivot. But the people who I see be really successful, they truly, truly commit to what they teach and figuring it out and making it better and better and better. And yeah, so
refining. Yeah. And doing constant like marketing moments, I call them. And in the brick and mortar world, it was like a marketing moment where you would have an event or an open house or a grand opening in your new location. They do multiple launches constantly. And it's like one person that's sitting wanting to go to the beach or hang out at home with their dog. You're not going to be able to pull that off on your own. Like, and it's almost like the reality of like, you know, showing behind the Wizard of Oz curtain, like, let's see here so that you don't feel like anything's wrong with you. I think it's so important to share that with people because I think so many people think it's them. And I'm like, no, you've been sold kind of like a bag of tricks that everyone else they're working hard. They're doing it. They're putting in the time. It's like anybody that started even a podcast early on. Well, when it's not a diluted space, it's really easy to stand out. It's hard when there's a lot of commotion and noise. And I feel like that's kind of what happens now. So you're saying that the more niche somebody is, so instead of it being an Instagram marketing course, it's like an Instagram marketing course for dog moms or moms that stay at home or whatever, right? Is there anything else that you found, whether it's maybe a specific lead magnets type of source that works, or if it's email funnels that work? Like, what is there anything else that you found for just online specifically that helps people get their product out?
Common denominators would be an email list. Pretty much everyone has an email list, or I should back that up. Not necessarily an email list, but a way to really nurture your audience and your community. And so for most people, that's the email list. But I've also seen people with like text campaigns, and that's how they nurture people, or private podcast feeds that they're always adding to, even though it's a private podcast feed, not a public podcast feed. So there's lots of ways to do it, but definitely nurture is among them. And I would also say just being cognizant of client acquisition streams and refining one, making one work, and then adding another. If I talk to any of my clients who, if they're going from 6 to 7 figures, it's usually one client acquisition stream that they're really leaning on. And you let me know because you're the business strategist, but that's just what I've seen across most of my clients. And then from 7 to 8, it's all about how many can we turn up and do it well in the same way. So yeah, that's a common denominator.
Oh, cool. That's good.
Yeah.
What is, if we go back to your journey for a hot second, what has been some of the, and if you're comfortable to share, some of the greatest challenges? Because obviously you came from that, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to be a teacher, to being an entrepreneur, seeing some success, realizing what you knew, what you didn't know. I would imagine that there were some moments in there where you questioned your ability, wasn't sure if it was going to work out. You now have employees and staff. What were some of that transition like? And what were some of the greatest challenges and struggles throughout that build?
Before I started doing what I do now, I had a mastermind. It was mainly an accountability mastermind. I had a membership that was around productivity. I hadn't really planted my flag. And I was on a walk with my dog, and I got a gut hit that said, shut it all down. And at first I didn't listen. I didn't listen for about 3 months, and nothing got better.
You never do.
And I was on another walk with my dog, and it came up again. And I was like, okay, let's try it. And so I made it home. I fired all of my clients. I closed down all of my offers, and I had no idea what was next. I had no recurring revenue coming in. I mean, I was okay for like a month or so, but like, it's not like I had a whole big old emergency fund to lean back on. And I just decided to follow my gut, create the space, right? Call in that law of the vacuum. And I called all the people who know me best. So business people, friends, mentors, and had conversations with them like, this is not working, but I don't know what to do now. And they just reflected back to me things that they thought I was good at. They told me or they asked me for help with certain things that I didn't see as being a genius zone of mine necessarily. And through those conversations and then little baby steps of action, I landed into this online course ghostwriter thing is what I was calling it, and put up that Facebook post that earned that first client. I think that was probably the scariest thing because there was no safety net. But I knew I had to follow my gut. And I feel like we often I've had that same feeling with fires I've had to do, with hires I've had to make when I wasn't sure how I was going to pay the person, with investments into certain education or programming or mentors, advertising, like so many things. You just don't know how you're going to do it. But for me, if my gut is like, even though you don't know how, you're going to do it, you just got to go for it.
Yeah, those little nudges, it's like sometimes we ignore them until they get pretty loud. I've learned in my life that if you listen faster, it's less painful. So who knows, if you wouldn't have dialed into that, maybe there was something that was coming that your instinct was kind of knowing about that was going to come crashing down. And I think that intuition and having that discernment after you put in the reps and you realize, you know what, I just crashed this all down. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And then you were still able to build from that. Like, what did you feel? What trait do you feel it was developed out of that decision?
Belief in myself. Like, everything is figure outable. There's never been anything in my life that I haven't figured out. Like, I'm still here. And if I didn't figure it out, then I figured it out eventually. So I think it was just like resilience and belief in myself that everything is figure outable and I can do it.
And anyone that's listening now that's like, okay, so she developed that belief, she got through that. Oh my gosh, that would have been so scary. But they're like, you know what? I'm feeling that nudge right now, or I have felt it. And it might not be to start a business. It might be to go to another level in business or open another location or hire another team or elevate their team. What can you maybe share to just give them some peace or advice that you would share to anybody that's struggling with that fear or maybe that instinct that they're not sure how to discern?
First, I'd say set a goal and give yourself permission to go for it for a certain amount of time. I think a lot of us, we feel like if we commit to something, we commit to it forever. And I do think there's value in experimenting and trying things on. And so when I made that decision, I was like, okay, I'm going to work with 3 people. I'm going to give it I'm going to play full out for these 3 clients. And then I'm going to give myself permission to decide if I want to keep doing it or not. So that would be thing 1. And then thing 2 is ask for help. Like, we all have people who can help us. And maybe it's not in business. Maybe it's someone in your personal life who you just need them to step up for you for this season. Right? So that you feel like you have the support to do the thing. And ask for help in any way that you can.
The one thing I keep hearing that you're saying too is like this feeling where people think they wait for clarity, but clarity comes in motion. And I love how you said that perfect. You're like, I had 3 clients, I was going to give it all I got and then decide. And it's like, what if you just today decided whatever you're waffling on, what if you just decided I'm going to give myself X amount of days, I'm going to go all in on this and then decide. I think people get so attached to the decision and how it reflects back to them on whether they closed this thing or didn't do this thing or did this thing. Did you have any of that doubt in your mind that you struggled with? Like, well, what would everybody say if I close all this down and fire all my clients? And how did you get over that?
I don't know if I had that fear. Like, I'm going to be real honest. Like, I'm just the kind of, I've always been that person who says, clarity comes from action. Like, you need to take action to get clarity rather than have clarity to take action. And I mean, I credit my parents with that because growing up, they were like, just try out strings class and see if you like violin. And if you don't, we can try band. Like, so I think they created this environment where I could go for things and then change my mind if I wanted to. But I'd say my husband sometimes struggles with that. And he gets over it by thinking about the people he looks up to and considers when Tony Robbins or whoever that person is, when they were where I was, what were the decisions that I see them making?
Yeah.
And then that kind of, he leans on that energy of his elders, let's say.
Yeah, of course.
To take action and move forward despite the fear.
Yeah. Did you ever hear, because I know we read a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
Did you ever, Napoleon Hill, about his board?
Oh, yes.
Did you ever do it?
All the time.
Okay, so I don't actually think I've ever shared this on the show. So can you let everyone know, in case they're like, what are they talking about?
Okay.
Tell them about Napoleon Hill's board, because that's kind of similar to what you're talking about.
It's
I do
very
that
similar.
too. And after I'll share what I do. But I think this is phenomenal for everyone to hear.
So it's in Think and Grow Rich. It's right at the end. I don't remember what chapter number it is. I taught a Think and Grow Rich program a while ago.
Did you?
I still have the curriculum.
So
it's a
cool.
whole, anyway. And he has this idea of thinking about the people that you wish you could sit around a table with, almost like a mastermind, right? And ask their opinion and advice about certain things going on in your life. And if you develop that almost relationship with them by reading about them, learning about them, for us, we get to listen to their podcast, right? Like, you can know Jim Rohn pretty well, even though he's not with us anymore. And then when you have a problem or a challenge, you just, you visualize being at a table with them and putting the question out there and seeing how they respond. What's fascinating is I don't do this as much anymore, but there was a period in my life where I did this a lot. And I would have, Marie Forleo over here and Tony Robbins over here, and they would have their little exchanges about whatever I was saying, almost like duke it out, right?
Yeah.
Based on what she says and what he says, for instance. So it's a really good exercise.
And I think too, if everyone should go read that book if you haven't already.
Oh my gosh.
I have read it probably no less than 10 times in my life, because there was a period where I read it every single year before my birthday. It was like just the anchor. And I just think no matter what, it's timeless information. It still applies to every generation.
It's the only book where the spine came off.
Yeah. Is
like
it
ever.
really?
Yeah.
Oh my
like
gosh.
this. It's like, you can
Just
pull the pages out of the spine.
I love it. And it is the book that if you're going to have one that's like really through the ringer, that's the book
the
to
OG.
do. It really is. And I don't know if it goes back beyond that. I mean, is he the OG? Is there any reference? Because I'm the like data nerd on that stuff too.
Yeah, people say your root mentor sometimes, and who's your root mentor? And I always go straight to Napoleon Hill. I'm sure he had.
We figure he had his stepmom that was who was him. So then it's like, where did she hear that?
Right.
Yeah,
so
it's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. And for everyone who hasn't read that, if you're like, what are they talking about? If you want the short little cliff note, it's like, think about who has the life that you want to live now. And then when you are starting to sort and sift through questions that you're faced with in your life, ask them as if you're laying in bed or sitting around a table, being like, what would Steve Jobs do in this moment? Or what would so-and-so do? And they don't have to be dead. We're mentioning people that have passed, but they don't have to be. Like, they can be alive, just people that you don't have access to. And it's like, what would they do? How would they make that decision? How would you make that decision now? What would they tell you to do? And then implement that. And I think that it's so fascinating, because oftentimes people that are 20, 30, 40 years ahead of us, they have developed the discernment and they've done the reps that they just decide differently than maybe somebody that doesn't have the experience. So it's a way to like lean on other people's experiences. I love that. Thanks for teaching that on my show.
Anytime.
So one question I always love to ask everyone I interview. So you've obviously done this. You've pivoted from teaching. You've built this amazing business, which I really want everyone to be able to go check out. We're going to give all of your information at the end and add it into the show notes. But if you were to wake up tomorrow and everything you've built, the team is gone, you don't have any clients, nobody knows who you are, nobody knows who your business is, and you are all starting all over again, fresh tomorrow, with the weight of the world on your shoulders that you need to make your mortgage payment, you need to put food on the table, you need to buy dog food for Junie, and none of that exists. What are some of the first things, knowing what you know now, what are some of the first things you would do tomorrow to start to build a business back?
Add value. I get to keep my knowledge, right?
You get to keep your knowledge. It's it.
Okay. So with that in mind, I would just decide where's the best place to add value. That's how I built my business. Is I just thought, okay, who needs what I have and how can I help them? And not from a place of like, how can I help them so that there's like, I get something back, but truly just from the place of, I believe that what you give, you receive tenfold. And I would just go and give for a while. I don't know how long. I mean, it depends how much am I playing with here, but that would be my first go-to, is like the go-giver mindset.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that is such a testament to who you are. And just to express that to you here, it's genuinely one of the reasons we're sitting here. There are so many people that I have met throughout this last portion of my life, this other chapter that I'm in. And it's all about, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? And you have, and I don't even, like, some people, you can tell they're doing it. They're giving to get, to cash in that chip later.
Yeah.
And the thing about you is your heart and who you are and how you serve. Like, you genuinely just do it because it's who you are, and you can help someone. And if something comes back 1-fold, 5-fold, 10-fold, it's like it doesn't even matter. And so it's just a testament to who you are. And I think how you translate that to your team and your clients, it's why you're always going above and beyond any way that you can help clients. And I am grateful to be one. I can't wait for the world to see the book that I wrote and that you so beautifully visually describe, so everyone can learn it better. But thank you for what you do. Share with everyone where they can find you, how they can learn more about the services that you offer.
Sure. So, and thank you for that. I mean, truly, like, Candy, it is an honor and a privilege to get to work on your content, because one of the things about my company and my business and what I do is I rely on you to create impact. Like, I can create you the most amazing graphic in the history of the universe, but if you don't get it out there in the books the way you do, and the stages and all the amazing things that you do, like, that would mean that I don't have an impact. So, yeah, it's an honor and a privilege, and I'm just eternally grateful for you, for how you've helped my business, my life, my marriage, like ways you don't even know you've helped me. So thank you for that. And to answer your question, our website is creation.co, and it's with an 8.
You can spell it.
It's CRE8TION.
The teacher is drawing in the air.
You should see me on a whiteboard. Okay, I taught kindergarten. My printing, top notch. And the 8's actually an infinity sign. Because we think about it as creating infinite cash flow. Because you can do that with courses, right? So that's our company. My personal website, JasmineJonte.com. And my best social is probably Instagram.
Okay. And is it at Jasmine Jonte?
Yep.
Or, okay. And it's CRE8TION.co. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for spending this time with me.
Thanks for having me.
Getting to hang out with Grace a little bit. She always loves seeing you. She's like, wait, you're the ones with the turmeric treats.
I always bring turmeric treats.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this episode. And if there was something that you loved or you had a specific takeaway, share it and tag me at Candy Valentino. And if you haven't yet, grab your copy of Wealth Habits everywhere books are sold. And for upcoming events or ways to stay connected, head over to candyvalentino.com. That's all for today. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. We'll see you next time.